treat for you this morning. We have Lorraine Grave speaking and giving an amazing message, and I'm really excited because I know that she's going to be speaking from her own lives and what God has done. So, Lorraine, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here and an honour. And I just want to talk today about all the things that God did in my life, how he saved me from certain situations, even when I wasn't born again, but he was right there. And so my story today is to be in the world and not of the world. And John 17:14-17 tells us, I have given them your word, and the world hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. What does this mean? Well, when I was first born again, I just wanted to run into everything that the Lord had for me. And I'm very thankful to the House of Breakthrough for the love and care they have shown me over the years. And I've been in this church now for 27 years, and we are moulded by the things that happen to us, and these things often affect the choices we make in every aspect of our lives. I was born in Taumarunui, and when I was a year old, I had an accident and fell on the corner of concrete and hit my head. And my mum tells me I was out for a whole day. I still have the indent in my head if anyone wants to check it out. Then when I was 18 months old, I walked into a pond on a friend's farm, and before I knew it, the water was up over my head, and my brother Michael came in and saved me. When my family moved to Gisborne, I was 2.5 years old, and due to the circumstances we were living in, I contracted TB meningitis. It was a very serious illness back in the day, and most people either died or, if they survived, they were vegetables. Some people might think, yeah. Anyway, the doctors asked my parents if they could use me as a guinea pig, and they had a new drug out at that time called streptomycin. And so Mum and Dad agreed to that, and so for 2.5 years I had streptomycin, and once a week they would give me these lumbar punctures to relieve the pressure on my brain. So anyway, I came through all of that, and at 5 years old I went to school. It would seem that the enemy had his ticket on me right from the start, but the Lord had a different plan, because I'm still here. When I was 8 years old, we were camping at Turihau, and I heard this voice talking to me and saying, "Come into the water, it's lovely in here." So before I knew it, I'd walked into the lagoon, and before I knew it, the water was up over my head, and I remember looking up and seeing the sun and thinking, gosh, the sun's bright up there, but the water was way over my head. Next minute, here's my brother Roger tiptoeing into the water to rescue me. I sort of wonder if it was the same voice that called me into that pond when I was 18 months old. Because, we know there's an enemy out there that wants to rob, steal and destroy, so I often wonder if it was the same voice. At this time, my brothers and I had a quartet, and we would sing at different functions around Gisborne. And this was the first time that Bruce saw me. He told me, I was singing with my brothers on stage, and he told me he saw this light shining from me. And he said to his mum, "How's that girl doing that? How's she making that light do that?" Anyway, he never saw me again until I was 14 years old, and I was biking to Girls' High. And he and a few of his friends were sort of at the rugby field there. And he said to his friends, "There goes that girl." Anyway, they had no idea what he was talking about, but he rang me and asked me to go to the movies. I was 14 years old. So Bruce was my childhood sweetheart. Anyway, I said to him, look, I won't be able to go out with anyone unless they come and meet my parents. So Bruce very boldly came and met my parents, and we dated for about 2 years, and then after a silly misunderstanding, we parted company. Then at age 16, I appeared to have a relapse of the meningitis. But this time, my immune system, together with modern medicine, I managed to fight it off quickly. I got pregnant at age 17 and had my daughter Teresa when I was 18, spending a year as a solo mum. In those days, it was a bit of a disgrace to be a solo mum. It's not quite such a bad thing to happen these days. However, my mum and dad supported me, and I refused to be knocked down by the gossip. I got married to Kevin Zamey at age 19, who was Teresa's dad, and we had 3 children, Teresa, Mark and Sean. They were the best thing that ever happened to me, and we had lots of fun camping and all sorts of outdoor adventures. At age 25, I had the first lump removed from my breast, which was not cancer at that time, but a wake-up call anyway. When I was 35 years old, I started my career in real estate with Wrights and Dalgety, a company that was rural-based and serviced Gisborne in the East Coast area. There was a noticeable lack of ladies in the real estate industry back then, and so I had to prove myself to these guys. Anyway, I raced out there and I was listing and selling everything I could lay my hands on. And next minute, the older men were saying to me, slow down, because they were heading towards retirement, and because I was this 30-year-old that was full of life and vigour. And I really enjoyed the job. The main thing was I enjoyed the people and helping them realise their dreams. As time moved on, I built a reputation of integrity and things were ticking along really well, but there was something missing in my life. I had divorced my first husband and once again a solo mother. This is when I met Roger Wilson. During this time in my life, I was definitely in the world, striving to get ahead and make something of my life. You realise afterwards when you become born again that, the way you were living wasn't the right way. Material things aren't everything. I went to work for Osler First National, and the Oslers wanted me to go to a seminar in Auckland. I'd just come from Australia, from a holiday in Australia, and was pretty tired after a busy holiday. In those days, I really liked fast cars. And so off I went to Auckland, driving like a woman possessed. And at times I was, is Marcus here anywhere? I was going to ask him to put his fingers in his ears. At times I was driving at 200 k's. Over 200 k's actually, if I'm honest. And so, I got from here to the end of the Matata Straits in an hour and a half. Now that's crazy, isn't it? When I look back, that's crazy. And people look at me as if to say, you can't do that, but I know you can. Anyway, I got to this corner and I was heading into the gravel and I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? So instead of driving out of the corner and carrying on up the road, I hit the brake, which put the car into a spin. Then it rolled over and I ended up going on the wrong side of the road, uphill on the roof. Actually, while that was happening, I could feel hands pinning me back in my chair. And it was so real, I was screaming, let me go. Anyway, when the car finally came to a stop, upside down, on the wrong side of the road, the windscreen was about 2 inches from my nose. So if I hadn't have been held by an angel that day, I would have had my face wiped off. Anyway, I got the car all sorted and carried on to friends of mine's place in Auckland where I was going to stay. And before dinner I went and had a shower. And I was getting undressed and having a look in the mirror, see if I had any marks on me anywhere, and I was like, oh my gosh. I had 3 fingerprints on the front and a thumbprint on the back where I had been held in the car on both shoulders. And I was like, wow, That was freaky. So I called a friend of mine and to have a look at what had happened, and she was the same. She said, yeah, you must have... She wasn't a Christian at that stage, but she did become a Christian afterwards. She said, yeah, you must have been held by an angel, because I had a thick padded jacket on, so there's no way that the seatbelt or anything could have done that. This was a pivotal time in my life where I knew deep in my heart that the Lord was calling me. I was already a believer in Jesus and the Lord, but not born again. I happened to go to a Bill Zabritsky rally at Gills High and was moved to tears as soon as I arrived. And when the salvation call came, I ran up the front. Anyway, they took you out the back and prayed for you afterwards, and while I was sitting there, I let out this shriek. I thought, that's weird. I knew it wasn't me, but I couldn't work out what it was, and when I asked them what that was, they said, a spirit of fear has just left you. And I thought, wow, that's weird. But I was no longer scared of spiders and bees, and I was no longer scared of the dark. So I realised, that there had been a spirit in me that was making me frightened of these things. Anyway, after that, I knew I needed to find a spiritual home. So I started looking for a church to connect with. Roger and I had bought and renovated 2 houses, and the market had slowed down, and we were getting worried about the properties not selling. Roger had met Pastor Trev from the Elam Church and said what a great guy he was. And in those days, the office was opposite Pack and Save. So as I would drive past, the church sign would act like a beacon to me. It's like, come in here, Anyway, one day I decided I'd go and see Pastor Trev. And we sat and chatted, and then he said to me in his Irish way, oh, Lorraine, you need fellowship. So I came to church that Sunday, which was Easter weekend 27 years ago. Roger and I had a milk vending company for which I handled all the accounts inward and outward when I wasn't selling houses. Ill health rose its head again, and I had an emergency hysterectomy. The following year, together with a friend of mine, we bought Harcourt's real estate in Gisborne, and life became very busy running real estate company and helping Roger work the milk run. Things began to change in our lives, and we started moving in opposite directions. This is when Bruce came back into my life, and Roger and I parted. Bruce had been my childhood sweetheart, and we had both been married twice before, so there was a lot of baggage to deal with before we could make a real commitment. Pastor Norm told us we couldn't help out in the church if we were living together, so we made the decision to live in separate houses. That wasn't easy, by the way, We were living together at that point, but we just made that decision for our own souls and for moving forward with the Lord. This was a turning point in my life, and I started on a journey to find what I was really here for. I'd been a member of the Lions Club and helped out in the community for about 20 years, and I was region chairperson for the East Coast, and I had 10 clubs under me, so I had a busy life with real estate, milk run, doing that as well. But I knew that that wasn't where I was meant to be, and I felt the Lord calling me to help in the church instead. Once again, health issues raised their head, and I had breast cancer, and I was told I was terminal, which forced me to rethink the stress levels I was working under. And during the 2008-2009 recession, the real estate business was closed, and I lost everything. I went to work for Bromwell K Agency, and it felt good to step back into a salesperson role without the worries of management. Bruce and I were now helping in the church. My passion in those days was worship, because as a child, my brothers and I had a band, and I would sing at functions all around town, and so singing was my thing, but the Lord had a different plan. I started serving in operations. Lorna and Alan were the leaders at the time, and the congregation was really large then. We had about 700 strong, and we had a large team in operations, and I started as an usher. Bruce and I had been together for 9 years by now, but living in separate houses, so we decided to get married. It was a fabulous day with church whānau, family and friends, and we could now move on together as a couple. The bank had sold our home by mortgagee sale, and we still owed about $288,000. We didn't know how we were going to sort this, and so there was lots of prayer went up to the Lord. The young man that was handling our finances with the bank said he'd talked to the bank 3 times and they refused to clear the debt. And so then he told Bruce, he said, look, I think I'm just going to lose your file. And Bruce said to him, don't do that. We're Christians. We will face whatever we have to get the thing sorted. Anyway, this young man went back to the bank again, and he came back to us a couple of days later, and God had intervened. There's no other way about it. He told us that the bank had agreed to cancel the debt. So praise the Lord. We didn't know how we were going to get through that time. So we were very blessed. Here's one of our supernatural things that have happened. There's been so many. I could write a book on them actually, but this is one of the fun ones. Bruce and I went for a trip to Whangarei for a JP conference. And while we were there, we decided we'd go to Cape Reinga. And anyway, the day we decided to head off on our journey, the rain was coming down, the wind was blowing. In fact, the rain was going sideways. It was that bad, And Bruce said to me, we're not going to get to see anything when we get there. And then we stopped at 90 Mile Beach and we saw about 50 metres of 90 Mile Beach. So it was a really bad day. Anyway, I said to Bruce, don't worry, I'll just pray. So I just said to the Lord, when we get to Cape Reinga, can you stop the rain and wind? Can you open the clouds and let us walk around? And then, if it's possible, can you let us see the 3 Kings Islands, which are quite a way off the Cape Reinga? Anyway, so we carry on up there and it's pouring and pouring and pouring. We stopped the car, the rain stopped. Then the wind stopped. Then the clouds opened, almost as we were getting out of the car. It was just like, Bruce will testify to this because we were like, thank you, Lord, Anyway, the clouds opened up, the sun shone. We spent about an hour and a half walking around, looking at everything. We saw 90 Mile Beach from the other end. And then I said to Bruce, oh my gosh, look over there. And there were these shards of light coming down from the clouds, shining on the 3 Kings Islands. And we were like just in awe watching this. And anyway, so we go back to the car. We shut the door. The clouds close. The wind starts and the rain came down again like it was on our trip there. It all happened in minutes. I mean, it sounds incredible, but it truly happened. Just one of the many supernatural things that have happened since I've become a born-again Christian. I could write a book on lots of them. Anyway, Alan and Lorna stepped down from leading operations, and Josh and Mel Callis took on the role for a year. And then Pastor Norman Jess asked Bruce and I if we would lead operations. At that time, there were 66 team members, and so we took on looking after the team, which included ushers, car park and security, hospitality, open up lockout, and a life group. It was hard work setting rosters, training new people, preparing for a life group every week, being early to church and making sure things ran smoothly, as well as selling real estate, open homes, taking care of home and gardens. But this is what we do, don't we, when we're in the church? We just make time for everything and you become very organised. It's just as well I'm hyperactive too and had the energy to do all the tasks. After 8 years serving in operations and a further 6 years leading operations, Bruce and I stood down from leading, and then I had recurrence of breast cancer and was diagnosed terminal again. And I refused to accept those words over me, and in my head I said, let those words fall like dust to the ground. You can make a decision. You can decide that you're going to accept everything and go down that path and let the enemy have his way, or you can cling to the Lord and agree with his word that he wants only the best for us and that he wants health in our lives. I chose to believe God, and I chose to go down that path and not agree with what the enemy would have happen. And then 3.5 years later, a recurrence happened again. Once again, diagnosed terminal, and I refused to accept those words again. The Lord has been amazing every time. I've had miracle healings throughout my life, right from a little girl, right up until today. And I can only say that I am thankful that I was born again and that I know where I'm going in the end. Anyway, coming to a close. When you are walking through life and you come across difficulties, what do you do? Do you panic? Do you just do nothing and hope the problem will go away? Or do you go to the Lord in prayer and ask for his help? We should all be asking the Lord first, but how many times do we just box on trying to fix the problem ourselves and find we're getting into more difficulty? When we try and fix things ourselves, it doesn't always work out. What would Jesus do? He would talk with his Father and seek the right answers and know that in faith all things are possible. If you ask according to God's will in faith, you will receive. And I'm a witness of that. The things that have happened to me throughout my life, especially since I've been a born-again Christian, when I have asked, God has come through every time. So I'd just like to thank you all today for coming and just give all the praise and glory to the Lord. Amen.